after we're done with that, then we'll segue into the wine. Warren had a commitment that he just couldn't get out of, so he probably won't come until about 5:30, but we are so fortunate and lucky to have the owners and some of the senior people from Ostler Winery on with us. So we're so grateful for you joining us and for Warren's being able to make that connection and everything. So this is going to be very, very exciting. So welcome to New Zealand. Here we are. We all made it here. And I'm going to introduce Sarah Farag. Am I pronouncing your last name right?
Sarah Farag, that's right.
Right, okay. From Southern Crossings, New Zealand. If you remember in the way back in May on our very first one of the destinations we went to was Australia, and we had Southern Crossings Australia, and this is their kind of sister company. And Paul was with us, and that was just fabulous. I'm still thinking about eating those oysters in the water with the big wading boots with the champagne. That is so on my bucket list. Anyway, so Sarah kindly is going to take us through New Zealand. Southern Crossings is a fabulous DMC, destination management company, which all these people are. They're virtuoso, and they just do a fabulous, fabulous job. So Sarah, take us to New Zealand.
Oh, thank you, Sandy. Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. And it's gorgeous to be here with you all today. It's midsummer, and I've got my headset on because the sound of the cicadas outside is incredibly loud. And I've got the door open in case the dog runs through. So that is part of the home-based lifestyle which we're all experiencing around the world. And it's gorgeous to be with you. Kia ora from Auckland, New Zealand, where I am based. I'm the principal owner of Southern Crossings in New Zealand, and we partner with wonderful agencies offshore such as Sandy's, and tailor-make itineraries around Australia and New Zealand. And we have been doing so for nearly 35 years. So, and in that time, we've proudly never repeated an itinerary. So it's all about hearing of your interests, which we can see is certainly going to be about around the wineries today. New Zealand has plenty of those, and we're going to end with one of the finest and certainly less well-known Waitaki regions, but I'll wind up there, and we'll start in the centre of New Zealand, the gateway city, which is Auckland. This is at the in the North Island, and whilst it's not our capital city, that is Wellington, Auckland is indeed the international gateway to New Zealand. This is where the majority of people reside. We have a population of 5 million spread across the country, which is about the size of California, and just shy of 2 million of those people live in the city of Auckland, and it is where I live too. Its nickname is the City of Sails, and that is because more people per head of population than anywhere in the world have a boat. Not surprisingly, we're surrounded by two incredible bodies of water, and on the side which the city faces to the east, we have beautiful bays and islands to explore. One of our favorites, and you can even get there on a ferry, which is only 35 minutes from downtown Auckland, and you're at Waiheke Island, which is nicknamed the Island of Wine. There are all sorts of beautiful vineyards all over this island, such as this one that we're looking at here, Mudbrick, which faces back towards the city. So at sunset, you can sip a wine here and watch the sun going down over the city. And I think you know you're in the right place outside of Auckland. But beyond that, there's also wonderful sculpture trails, beaches, horse riding, zip trekking, cycling, all sorts of excursions you can have there, or simply just relax and enjoy the scenery. Going up to the tip of the North Island, this is the Bay of Islands region, and the area where New Zealand really was colonized and signed the Treaty of Waitangi in this region. It was sort of named Northland. It was a bit dull back in the 1840s, but it's nothing but that. It is an area that comprises of 144 islands, and a favorite activity is, of course, getting out on a boat and exploring them from the sea, where you can do wonderful snorkeling excursions, take a picnic on a beach, or simply relax on board and soak up the fresh air. The region is also home to beautiful stretches of white sandy beach, and a horse riding trail is a fabulous way to explore one of those beaches. Going down into the center of the North Island, the Rotorua and Taupo region is the sort of the hive of our geothermal plateau. One thing about New Zealand is we have got every form of geographical formation, such as glaciers, canyons, beaches, lakes, rivers, mountains, fjords, you name it. And this area is quite unique because it is boiling mud pools and geysers and volcanoes. So very interesting place to explore, and steeped in Indigenous Maori history. New Zealand has really also gone on the map for the Lord of the Rings and its movies, and one place just north of Rotorua that you can visit is the Hobbiton movie set, which is really just an extraordinary place to see. It's 2 hours through the tour, and on the most beautiful idyllic farmland, which you can see there. The North Island is really renowned for its gentle rolling pastures, and so that's interesting. If you're not into the movies, it doesn't really matter. There's plenty of scenery where Lord of the Rings took place, and whether you're a fan or not, you can just enjoy it for its scenic beauty. This area was part of that for the Lord of the Rings, but it's also a UNESCO World Heritage listed site, and the Tongariro National Park has our most ambitious one-day guided hike called the Tongariro Crossing, and as you can see, the terrain there really is quite unique and striking. Popping out east to the east coast of the North Island, we have the Hawke's Bay region. Basically, if you've got some good soil here and you can grow a grape, they'll put a winery in, and the Hawke's Bay is particularly well known for its Chardonnays. But a fun activity is just cycling. There are a myriad of soft limestone trails, so very gentle cycling. You can have an e-bike if you wish, but a wonderful way to sit and sample wines as you look at the Hawke's Bay vistas. We've got a network of beautiful properties.
With that little kiwi, I just
love it. Well, you can get the kiwis, our national icon. It's our native bird here, and it is unable to fly. It lost its ability to fly many years ago because it simply didn't need to before predators were introduced to New Zealand. There were no predators to the cute little flightless bird before humans arrived. And so they were on the brink of extinction, but many wonderful people have done all sorts of acts with the Department of Conservation to restore it. And one of those is at a virtuoso lodge, the farm at Cape Kidnappers, where you can go with a ranger from the Department of Conservation and do a health check with a kiwi and see that how they're being reared in a wild environment, but it's in a predator-proof fenced off property. So it is quite extraordinary to do that. When they get a little bit older and more robust, they're taken to sort of more wild pastures.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah. The Hawke's Bay region is also very steeped in Indigenous history, and perhaps not as well known as the Rotorua Taupo region, which really I suppose is more commercial. But in the Hawke's Bay region, you can have a really wonderful Indigenous experience with just one or two people who will tell you of their personal journey as it is today and as it was with their ancestors. So that's a fascinating way to learn about much of our past. Crossing to the top of the South Island, we have two beautiful regions called Marlborough and Nelson. Nelson sits to the left of the top of the South Island, sorry, and this is one of our smallest, probably our most picturesque national parks, the Abel Tasman National Park, and the beautiful bush-fringed bays, wonderful hiking trails, or obviously getting out on a boat and kayaking and exploring the waterways with these beautiful golden sand beaches is quite idyllic. Marlborough probably was the first region to put New Zealand's wine trail on the map, and is a very widely, worldwide recognised area, particularly for its Sauvignon Blancs. But beyond that, it is access to the Marlborough Sounds region, where again, the Queen Charlotte Track has beautiful trails. There's lots of dolphin who reside in the Marlborough Sounds, so a beautiful area for wildlife as well. And also just south of Marlborough is a region called Kaikoura, where you can see sperm whale and dolphins as well. So really you're touching into some wonderful marine life through this region just south of Marlborough. For today's purposes, I've done a little bit of a jump south because I'm going to wind up going a little further north towards the Waitaki region for you. But if we dip down to the near the bottom of the South Island, we have the Queenstown and Fjords region. And as you can see, the scenery is just changing here again, and it's certainly known as an adventure playground, but also an alpine wonderland. And you have beautiful lakes as well as dramatic mountain peaks and access to the Fjords National Park.
So is that snow on the mountain peaks over there?
Absolutely. It snows in the mountains all year round. I mean, it's our summer. We do have the reverse climate to your northern hemisphere, but it is even in February they'll get a little sprinkling, and not so much that you'll see it because it will melt very quickly, but there are glaciers that are there year round, so even in summer you can touch down on a glacier. That would be a typical view from about June through till about November, where you will see it snow-capped.
So how is the skiing in New Zealand?
Skiing's fabulous. It's all above the tree line, which makes it quite different to skiing in your part of the world. And in the Queenstown area, you've got two ski fields, the remarkable ski fields and Coronet Peak. And then just an hour north, you've got Wanaka, which has Cardrona and Treble Cone ski fields. They're the four of the main ones, just in fact nearer the Waitaki region and nearer Christchurch, sort of in the center of the South Island. We also have Mount Hutt, which is another wonderful ski area. And it's July and August that are really the prime ski months for New Zealand.
So our avid skiers who wanted to ski even more in the summer could go to New Zealand and have wonderful ski vacations, right?
Absolutely. And we're really encouraging year-round travel. I think this is going to be a mindset that will shift going forward, so that we can really embrace a more sort of spread, low season traveller mentality, so that people are coming down to New Zealand for all of its seasons, not just needing to come for its very peak summer, when it typically gets a little bottlenecked, maybe not so much at the moment, but we certainly going forward, we want to be mindful of regional spread for our travellers, and indeed thinking about coming throughout the year. And you're right, Sandy, certainly our winter, and there are wonderful heli skiing options as well if you want to go on some really private trails.
That's great. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And the temperature in other parts of New Zealand are temperate enough during July and August, or June, July, and August, that it's still comfortable to travel, correct?
Exactly. Certainly, I mean, the far north area that we started at in the Bay of Islands is sort of been dubbed the winterless north because it is very temperate and mild. You certainly would never get snow anywhere from Auckland and north of Auckland. So it is very temperate, but you wouldn't be perhaps doing the water activities we mentioned. But it is certainly beautiful beach walks and so on can be taken at that time of the year. You just need another jacket. It's also a fabulous time of the year if you are thinking of coming for some winter, perhaps combining that with the beautiful climate of Fiji and the South Pacific or the northern reaches of Australia. So you can actually have a bit of sun and ski at the same time, which is fun.
That sounds fabulous.
And this region is particularly well known for being the adventure capital of New Zealand. You don't have to be an adventure bunny to enjoy it, but some of the fun activities are, apart from bungee jumping off bridges, jet boating. And this one takes you through to Glenorchy and again into another World Heritage site. And it is just idyllic scenery. So it's more of, yes, you are going at high speed, but it's a way to access some really remote, untouched places. And again, where some of the Lord of the Rings movie was taken place there. If you're a fan of it, you would recognize the scenery. If you're not a fan, you would just enjoy the scenery for its absolute beauty, that it always existed well before Lord of the Rings. I do mention sometimes helicopters in New Zealand. They do seem to go very much hand in hand with our scenery because it just gives you that incredible bird's eye perspective, which I think our scenery is so breathtaking. Seeing it from the air is quite extraordinary. And if you were just to go in one helicopter, I really would recommend doing the one trip to Milford Sound. Milford Sound from Queenstown takes over 4 hours drive in one direction, yet as the crow flies, or in this case the helicopter, it's just a 30-minute flight over beautiful mountains. You get to see the whole of the Southern Alps, and even you could land on an untouched glacier, really remote, or a beautiful setting, and just turn off the sound of the helicopter and listen to the sound of silence. And you can see the west coast on one side and back towards Queenstown. It's really idyllic. And then you fly through the mouth of the fjord, or indeed, Sandy, where you're sitting, you may have gone on a cruise there, which really gives you that perspective of the dramatic scale of the Fiordland region.
It's just gorgeous.
Of course, hiking trails abound in New Zealand, and the Fiordland National Park region has a myriad of multi-day hikes, which are really exceptional. Beautiful huts and really informative guided tours, multi-day ones. We particularly like the Hollyford because it's 3 days and 2 nights, an incredibly diverse terrain, and just really well guided and very small. They only take 16 people at a time, so that's lovely. And it includes a jet boat and a helicopter. So and you go through beautiful native bush out to the coast, where you can see seal colonies as well. So it is exceptional, and certain times of the year you can see penguins as well. Going north of the Queenstown region back towards Waitaki and Christchurch region, Mount Cook is certainly very well known. It really was the Rotorua and Mount Cook region that put New Zealand very first on the tourist map. It is our highest peak in the South Island and very dramatic in its landscape. Beautiful glacier-fed lakes, which are just a brilliant blue. And so it is very breathtaking scenery. And, you know, we've got a myriad of lodges throughout New Zealand. I'm not going to touch on all of our accommodation. You'll know many of our beautiful virtuoso lodge properties. But New Zealand really began its lodge accommodation from the fly fishing and farm stay days, where people would go and sit around a communal dinner table and talk about their catch of the day, or go out with the farmer and share a sheep. And today they've evolved into this myriad of spectacular lodges throughout the country. This one is just south of the Mount Cook region in the Ahuriri Valley. It overlooks an amazing fly fishing river that National Geographic, in fact, rated it as one of our top 10 in New Zealand. The lodge you can see here, it just blends in harmoniously with the countryside, and it only has 5 suites in the lodge, but it also has 3 tiny, compact little glass pods which sit outside of away from the main lodge area. Gorgeous for a honeymoon couple or people who, it's sort of almost like a glamping experience, but the area borders on a dark sky reserve. So the purpose of having those glass walls is that when the night sky is at its peak, you just feel like you're under a dome, and with all the stars above. So it's absolutely picturesque and beautiful.
It looks so dramatic, and to see all that, I mean, it's not the Northern Lights, but boy, that's an amazing experience, especially with all that whole glass there. How fabulous. We
It's
rarely
gorgeous.
get to see this kind of dark sky. Our lives are so lit up with light in the evenings.
That's exactly right. And there's so little light pollution in this region that it's one of the reasons why it is so bright. And in the air clarity in New Zealand is so sharp that your eye can see exceptionally far. So it is very rewarding, and it's incredibly hard to capture on a shot. You have to actually go there and experience it for yourself. That's simply the only way to really get the magnitude of the depth of those stars and how close they feel to you. It's extraordinary. And then that takes us a little further north to a very boutique wine producing region of the Waitaki, which I've learned to love. And really thanks for this presentation to be able to lead in and introduce it, as I'm very keen to hear more about the Ostler winery region as well, because I know that it is getting more and more acclaim, but still remaining a fabulously boutique little location.
Sarah, thank you. That was really fabulous. And the photos are just unbelievably stunning and dramatic. I saw a lot of people in the chat who had said they had been to New Zealand in our winter months, which are your summer months, which is obviously why they had fabulous weather. So it's a really great, if you want to get away from the cold winters or the rainy winters in the US, you can head to New Zealand and and do your hiking and everything else. If you don't have to be a person that wants to do a beach vacation, there's other fabulous opportunities in New Zealand. And if you're a skier, then don't stop in March or April. You can continue on to New Zealand. So anybody have any questions for Sarah about any of this, or any comments or anything? Feel free to unmic yourself and ask away.
Oh, I just wanted, you went really fast and you didn't tell people about Dunedin, which is kind of the little Scottish city on the southeast side of the South Island, which is a beautiful little city, and it's a great place to see yellow-eyed penguins and the albatross.
Correct.
And I actually sat like on the edge of a cliff watching the albatross come into land. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever done. So
you're absolutely right. I mean, there's not enough time in a way to touch on all of New Zealand, and there's plenty more to explore. But you're absolutely right. For a bird lover, Dunedin, and it's interesting. It's got a lot of Scottish heritage there as well. But certainly for the bird life, and the albatross, it is the closest mainland colony to a city in Dunedin, so it is fantastic. And you can really see that wingspan of those precious birds, because they too are suffering at the moment and really under threat, really from a lot of marine activity globally, because they do go offshore on their flight path around the world for so long. That making it all the way back down to Dunedin it's a treacherous journey for them. So we care a lot for that, and also to that point, the penguins. There's a beautiful little penguin hospital where we can take clients to in Dunedin, and you can really see how they're caring and looking after any that might get injured. It's actually just a really beautiful little story that they have there. So yes, absolutely, Dunedin is fantastic, also in the deep south.
I
then
saw
there are those
albatross in the Galapagos, so I wonder if they commute back and forth between New Zealand.
I'm told they do it almost like a world journey. So I believe they have stops on the way, but they from various regions. They stop only on, I believe, on the sea before they will return to their nesting place. So I'm not sure that they touch on the land at a different colony. So
Then
interesting,
there are
Sandy.
those amazing parrots, the Kia parrots that are like 14 inches tall. They're huge.
Terribly cheeky, the key is.
They'll steal your hiking boots.
Yeah, they're a little pesky at times.
I have a question about driving in New Zealand. I understand that there's one major highway that goes from up and down both islands. And how long does it, can you just describe driving there and roads and stuff along the highways and all of that? We're spoiled in California with different choices and all. So what are the options for driving?
Yes, absolutely. Look, we drive on the opposite side of the road to you. Our highways are not quite as sophisticated as yours. They're typically one lane in each direction. So once you're outside of the main city areas where there will be several lanes, you are literally one lane per direction. So look, self-driving is for many people very easy to do, and people enjoy the freedom and flexibility of it. And for others, they really want to just see the scenery. And whilst we do recommend traveling between regions by road, because what's so satisfying with New Zealand's scenery is that within 3 to 4 hours drive, it will have changed for you. So it really is the most picturesque experience and beautiful for your visually. It's quite a feast. We tend to suggest people drive for no more than 3 to 4 hours, because it is quite tiring, just that, you know, being the one lane. I think and on the other side, you've got to be very alert. So we suggest about a 3 to 4 hour stop. And typically within 3 to 4 hours, you'll find a new place to stay, and it'll be completely different scenery to the place you stayed before. So it does make for a very easy and pleasant self-drive destination. But equally, we've got a very good network of flights throughout the country, and our airports, our regional airports, are very simple. There's no security. It's literally a case of turning up, checking in your bag, and getting on board. So it is, you can mix it up, because ideally when we craft an itinerary, we try to avoid driving on the same road twice. So you mix up a combination of some road transport with some flights.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Sarah? Sarah, I don't want you to miss in the chat. You have a hello from Lee Lennon.
Oh, hello, Lee. Oh, nice. Oh, that's very sweet.
Sandy, I have a question for Sarah. If that's
Yes, absolutely.
What's the idea? I know it's a big country. There's a lot to
It's a
see.
big wine.
Very difficult to try to do it all in one trip. But if somebody really wanted to see it as much as possible all in one trip, what's the recommended timeline? Do you need 2 weeks, 3 weeks? What do you recommend?
I mean, 2 weeks is wonderful. If you've got 2 weeks, you can really see a lot of the diversity without feeling too rushed. Less than 2 weeks is it is a bit rushed, to be fair. So I really think 2 weeks is wonderful. If you've got more than that, fantastic. But within a 2 week time frame, it's the size of California or Great Britain. So if you were to think of it on that scale, it really, you have taken a decent flight to get here. So I think it's worth taking the time to explore it well. I always say that your flight is very easy. It's a dinner and a movie, your first night's accommodation, and you wake up and you're here. So it is an easy overnight flight. The day that you lose coming down, you gain going back. So it is very simple. But definitely, if you've got 2 weeks, you can see a lot of the contrasts without feeling you're rushed, and actually taking a bit of time in each region to really enjoy it and explore it.
Further to that, would you suggest, so the North Island seems a little bit easier because it's smaller for driving. and then more flights and maybe some guiding in the southern island more so, or?
No, not particularly. Actually, funny enough, the roads in the South Island I mean, some of them have some one-way little bridges and lanes, but a lot of them are very easy. Certainly the drive that links Christchurch through to Queenstown, for example, is very easy driving, and just, I mean, the only distraction is the scenery. It's so breathtaking. That's probably the biggest risk, but it's actually very easy. And so it really depends. It's all designed around a person's interests, and that would be really how much we would also determine time is taken up for the North and the South Island. But we do always recommend seeing both, just to get that really real contrast of experiences and appreciation for the different landscapes more than anything, because it's a visual feast to mix it all up.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Any other
Speaking
questions?
of experiences, Sandy?
Yeah.
I was going to say, speaking of experiences, we were there for the whole month of February 2 years ago, and it was really wonderful. And both, I couldn't pick between the North and the South, but I did want to point out, if it's longer for some people, we went to Christchurch, and we were amongst the first people to go back there when it was coming back from the earthquake, and it was really touching and very moving to see what has been happening there, and a lot led by Jacinda, the wonderful PM of the country. So that we also went to the capital city, which was interesting if you like to see cities too, very different than the great big city of Auckland.
Exactly. So Wellington, our capital city, is almost like a mini San Francisco. It's all very steep and hilly and quite charming and very compact. So at the bottom of the North Island, sorry. And then, yes, Christchurch in the South Island has really come about, even in the last 2 years, Judy. I feel like there's been a lot of progress there in terms of the rebuild, which has been really, really wonderful to see. It's the sort of progress we've been hoping for Christchurch, and it's certainly well worth a visit these days, absolutely.
And then it's an easy flight back to Auckland to get your international flight back. So, you know, the clients have done that many times, and it works out really well.
Sarah and Sandy, I was talking to a friend of mine who just today had to cancel a trip to New Zealand scheduled for June of this year. Is there any discussion of when it might open up to tourists?
Oh, that's the crystal ball that I've got wrong very many times, because we sort of get told something and then it seems to change. Look, we have got an elimination strategy here in New Zealand, as you've seen. We don't really, there's nothing smug about our ability to have really tackled COVID so well. But our isolated situation of the globe certainly has contributed. And the fact there are 5 million of us spread out over the entire state of California by equivalent scale does mean that we've had a lot of advantages on our side. And it turns out that New Zealanders are quite nerdy. We're very compliant. If Jacinda Ardern tells us to stay home, we tend to stay home. So we're very, we're like sheep, we do what we're told. And so we have had good success there. That has meant our border has stayed closed for a very long time. Next year it will be 1 year since our international border has seen any travellers coming who are not returning citizens or people coming for work purposes, such as the America's Cup, which is being held here at the moment in Auckland. So it has been an interesting time if you're an inbound travel or outbound, as Sandy and all of you will know. But New Zealand has just begun the vaccine. It started last weekend. The anticipation is that it will take up to the entire year to vaccinate 5 million of us. And Jacinda Ardern also announced that we could expect to see our borders closed for the remainder of the year. That is not a statement that is made with any definition around it, but it's a pretty strong statement. So we are encouraging people to consider traveling here for 22 and beyond, and we're getting quite a lot of interest and demand for the beginning part of 22 already, which is wonderful. We have got quite a few festive bookings for the end of this year still in place, and we're just going to assess. I think by July we'll know a lot more. That's what I'm hoping, as we see how swiftly they move with the vaccine and how that progresses, and then also see the success in other countries such as yours, which has been remarkable, the speed at which it's being delivered at the moment. And I think as we see that happen around the world and what it does to the virus will determine a lot of our border opening.
Right. I think as you know, our projections in the US are that they think most people will be vaccinated by the end of summer. So that means all the way down to at least the people who are 18 plus, and now they're doing the studies on children. And sounds like New Zealand will pretty well be done by the end of 2021. I mean, there's already all kinds of apps and programs for people who have been vaccinated that you can go. And I'm sure that as things, you know, kind of move on, countries are going to accept travelers who have vaccination cards, just like yellow fever in many countries that you've traveled to, Africa or Southeast Asia, you have your yellow fever card. So I think this is all happening. There are many of the airlines, many of the cruise lines, many of the hotels, many countries, they're all working. This is all happening now and experimenting and stuff. So I think by the end of the year, they're going to come up which is the best system, which is going to be most universally accepted. And if you're vaccinated, I think it's going to be a lot easier to travel to many parts of the world. So just kind of stay tuned. We're going to keep you on top of all that as it's rolling out in many ways. And I think 2022 travel is going to come back, you know, 2022 and 2023, well, we're probably, you know, won't even feel much of a difference than when it was from 2019. So hang in there. I think the end of I think third and fourth quarter 2021, there are definitely destinations that you can go to that will be safe, especially if we're all vaccinated and they have all these vaccines going out in these other countries. So there's a bright light at the end of this no travel tunnel that's really shining on for us. So Sarah, thank you so much. This was so fabulous, so wonderful. Some of us have never been, me included, and others got to relive their fabulous times in New Zealand. So thank you for this very wonderful treat.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, it was our pleasure. So let's see. So I don't think Warren's joined us yet. So Jim, we're gonna throw the ball over to you. Warren has graciously been able to get Jim Duram, who is one of the owners of Ostler Winery, to be on the call with us. I mean, how fabulous is that? And I'll give you a little background on Jim. Jim started out as a physician, and then in the 1990s, much like Warren, his love and appreciation for wine, his passion kind of took over. And he and his wife, Anne, in partnership with, I forgot who his other person was. It was Jeff, right? Jeff, you know, kind of started being fascinated by the Pinot Noir grape that they knew from Europe, and started looking around. And this Waitaki, am I pronouncing that right? Waitaki region really spoke to them as a great growing place for Pinot Noir. And in 2004, Jim said goodbye being a doctor, and here I am being a winemaker, and has created this fabulous, wonderful winery with these absolutely delicious wines that we're going to be tasting tonight. So Jim, let us taste New Zealand. And Sarah, if you could stop sharing, then this way we can see more of, you know, when people want to talk about it. So anyway, Jim, tell us about the wines that we're drinking tonight.
Hey, Jim, I'm going to interrupt you for just one quick second.
Yes.
So I just want to let everybody know Warren's not going to make it on the call.
Okay.
He's still stuck doing his thing. Some people did receive the 2012 Ostler Pinot Gris. And I think it's just a few of you. I don't know who you are, but you're also very lucky because that's a beautiful wine. So Jim, just so you know, there are a few people who got Pinot Gris, but most everybody else got the Riesling. and then everybody got
No,
the
it's actually a little bit different. What happened is that what got shipped was the Riesling and the Pinot Gris instead of the Riesling and the Pinot Noir. So it was a mix up in Warren's, on Warren's end. So Warren has replaced many of the Pinot, didn't replace, gave people the Pinot Noir that they're missing, but not everybody got it because by the time we figured out what had happened, you know, wasn't time to ship to some of our other people or get some of our people. So many people have the Pinot Noir. I think everybody has the Riesling and the Pinot Gris. So we're just a little bit behind on the Pinot Noir, but you know, we'll still taste that because there's people who have it, and the others can take their notes and then they can have their own private tasting.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Jim. All you.
Oh, thanks, guys, and thanks for having me aboard. I'm actually in Dunedin, that southeastern corner, about 2 hours from the Waitaki Valley where we live. Just because I needed to be here today, and I haven't seen any penguins and I haven't seen any albatrosses or albatrossi. Just a few things to add to Sarah's description of the country. It's almost, as you can see, vertically north-south, 1,200 kilometers, or what's that, about 700 miles in length, the two main islands. And it really goes from subtropical down to subantarctic over that distance. And I think it's important to say about the climate that it's critical to what we do, but we're in the middle of what's called the roaring 40s latitude. So 40 degrees south, and where the clipper ships used to sail around the world at that level. And indeed, the albatrosses, they leave the Otago Peninsula after they've nested, after they've fledged, and they've just done some radio tracking of them, and they go for, I think they recorded 24,000 kilometers without touching land.
Wow.
They'll land in the sea in that time, as Sarah said, but they come back to where they came from. And environmentally, there's a big concern about their vulnerability to fishing trawlers, and they get caught up in also even long lining boats, because they'll try and grab the fish as they come to the surface. So pretty special birds. A special country full of these, as Sarah said, birds that were never predated on, because there were no predators at all. Man's been the biggest predator and has relieved of us some wonderful birds over the last 150 years of white habitation, and even before that, some great big tall ratites called moa, which roamed the land, and they were gone before white arrival, a European arrival, but were a great big bird you may have seen that looked like a great big heavy emu or ostrich. So the Waitaki Valley drains the whole of the central South Island district. It's not as well known as the rest of the country. It does have, it's one of the routes by which you get to Mount Cook and see that wonderful, some of those pictures that Sarah had. And it's on the main highway between Christchurch and Queenstown, which are the sort of popular tourist destinations. But apart from that, it is the area that drains the whole central South Island to the east. So quite a large area of land. It stores, through the hydroelectric schemes, it stores 65% of New Zealand's hydropower. And in fact, the population is very low. We live in the mid part of the valley, influenced by the weather from the east coast. So not as hot as central Otago, which is surrounded more by mountains, more continental. But we went there particularly in the late 90s when my now wife Anne's brother came down to Dunedin, where I was running the student health service at the university, and said, take me to the Waitaki Valley. I have done my studies in viticulture in Australia, and limestone is all about what Pinot Noir is about. Burgundy is the home of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, of course, and most of it's limestone. So at that time in the late 90s, Central Otago was becoming known for the heartbreak grape, Pinot Noir, but grown on schist, very different soils and very different, a warmer climate as well. So I knew the Waitaki Valley from childhood, and I took Jeff up there, and we discovered the day we visited, the day after I'd met him in 1998, and a few months before he won Best Sauvignon Blanc in the world in the London International Wine Challenge, we discovered this wonderful patch of limestone. And I wonder if it's possible to go back that picture. I'm not sure that it was Sarah or Sandy who was showing that picture.
It was
of
Sarah.
Milford Sound. We can't grow grapes there.
I don't know if Sarah, are you on? Oh, great.
But there you are. So we discovered this paddock of alfalfa, and which is where the vines are now that you see. But just behind me was where that picture was taken. There was a quarry where they had done exploratory digging for agricultural lime in the 1960s. So we were able to look at the soil profiles, and Jeff got terribly excited because here was a slope. It's probably a little steeper than it looks there, looking out to the north. So it's got some elevation, it's got some slope. 1 degree of slope equals 1 degree increased heat accumulation during the season. And Jeff decided that this was the most exciting thing he'd ever seen. We did there was very little climatic data that we could draw on to get an idea of pioneering in the region, which is what we were going to do. There was a national weather site at Kurau up the valley to the left, a few miles, and another one across the valley and down, and another one at the little town of Oamaru. And we kind of took all that data and we came up with a model, which I have to tell you, frankly, turned out to be BS, but I was going to do it anyway. It's much cooler than we thought. So we're growing the Heartbreak grape on the very climatic edge. Now, as you may know that around the world, all the many different species of wine grape, or Vitis vinifera, the European wine grape, they all have their different climatic bands where they produce the best wines, and mostly that's at their cooler end. It's easy to grow them at the warm end, but not so at the cool end. So we've got limestone, we've got a climate which is marginal at the cool end, which is producing, dare I say it, wonderful wines, but where climate is limiting yield, and that's the payoff as commercially. In the last 10 years, we have seen the global warming, the climate change working in our benefit. The seasons are getting earlier, and although the seasons are also getting wilder, as we know from around the world, and we've had our fair share of that, it does seem to work perhaps in our favour. And I know there are wine growers like Atarangi in the North Island, famous Pinot producers, who are saying, hey, if we were starting again, I think we'd go to the Waitaki Valley. So there you are. We've got 4 little vineyards spread over 35 kilometres. What's that, about 20 miles? And this site in front of us is our premium Clos Ostler site. It's full of limestone. It's also the coolest. It's only 50 kilometres, 30 miles inland from the sea, and is very subject to a maritime influence compared, as I say, to Central Otago, which way am I pointing? Up to the left, only 2 hours over the hill, and significantly warmer summer temperatures there, but we get longer autumns and long hang times of these thin-skinned grapes, which we think gives us a style and a character which is quite different from Central Otago, and which we're very proud of. What the climate has done is means we haven't made Caroline's Pinot Noir from this site every year. We've only made it in the good years, but can I say that in the last 6 vintages from 2010 to 2018, that all those 6 vintages have won gold, 2 of them trophies, in the London International Wine Challenge, which calls itself the Oscars of wine. So we're pretty proud. We get small quantities, but we toast them. We get great vintage variation. So the styles vary from year to year, which is real wine. We don't try and blend them. We don't try and have similar. Jeff, brother-in-law Jeff, the great winemaker, will take the grapes that we produce, and he will do what the grapes need to do with themselves in fermentation. So the difference between the 2015, those of you who've got it today, and the 2016 is quite extraordinary. And the 2018, which again is lighter colored, but has its own complexity and elegance. Now, when we planted the grapes, of those of you that know Burgundy, I didn't, but Jeff said, and I know it well since, but Jeff said to me, when these wines are produced, we only know Central Otago Pinot Noirs in New Zealand at the moment, and they're young, big fruity wines. He said, our wine won't be understood. He said, our model for this wine is the village of Chambol-Musigny, which produces the vineyards around Chambol-Musigny in the Côte d'Or and Burgundy, produce arguably the most elegant and fine of the red Burgundies. You've got the Grand Cru Musigny, you've got Les Charmes, you've got some wonderful Premier Cru vineyards around Chambol, but not necessarily the biggest, most dense, knock you over the head Pinots. And if you like that sort of style, then you're probably better with Central Otago. We say ours are less fruit driven and have more vinosity in style, just because of less summer heat and longer hang time for those skins to develop the flavor that makes Pinot what it is.
So Jim, can we taste with you? Let's start with
Yeah,
one.
so how many of you got the Pinot Noir? Oh, there's 15 Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
I haven't got any wine with me, but I know the wines well, and I'll just can talk to them.
Okay. So
So
shall
we
start
just
with the
talk
white?
about from that Pinot Gris that you've got, those who've got Pinot Gris, which Pinot Gris is it? Is it the Audries or is it the Lakeside?
Lakeside.
Okay, so that's from 20 miles further up the valley, not on limestone, at a warmer site where we live.
I didn't know that.
So I'll talk to that as well, but let's talk about the Pinot Noir.
Okay.
It's all about limestone for us. It's all about finesse. It's all about acid structure, which of course is the backbone of all wine. And I think it's about the elegance and complexity and a sense. This is hard to describe. People talk about minerality, which is very ill described, but on that back palate, it just keeps lingering. It's got wonderful finish and those beautiful tannins with a kind of sense of chalky minerality. How's that?
What do you
Can
guys
you talk a
think?
little bit about the Riesling? I mean, Riesling's not a typical grape. And this is a 2012 that we're drinking, which is absolutely delightful.
Yeah, I'm so glad you've got it. So there's the Pinot Noir.
Ginger, I so agree with you. The Riesling is fruit forward, but has a lot of mineral to it. It's really good.
I haven't got that wine anymore.
Oh, really?
Has it got some of the terpene development, a little bit of that slightly petroleum finish to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I mean,
We did
if
it
you're
with
an
the
Aussie,
shrimp. It was fabulous. And I mean, that's 2012 is older than you would expect for a Riesling. But it's delightfully dry. And I don't know, I just really like it. And I'm not a big white wine fan.
Well, obviously, as Jim says, there's not a lot left if he doesn't have any. So if you really like it, call Warren.
Warren has all the rest of the stock of the 2012 Riesling. There is no more 2012 in the entire world. Warren has all the rest of it.
You got an inside track, guys. Warren, call Warren. When it's gone, it's gone.
So Ginger, I disagree with you about it's, unusual for Rieslings to be this old. There are people in the world that seek out old Rieslings for the fact that it is a variety that really does age particularly well if it's good, if it's balanced.
Right.
I have this this model that I think of, and I think Jeff is a master not only of the science and a brain like a planet in terms of his viticulture and winemaking knowledge, but about the dark art of getting wine in balance when it's being produced. And on the one corner, I've got the acid, which is what you start with. The other corner, you've got the sugar, what you start with, and you've got the alcohol that you finish with. and how much of the sugar and how much of the acid is left with the fruit in the middle. And when it's nice and equilateral, you get the sense of the structure behind the fruit being really balanced. And it's not, you don't get a lingering, you don't find it cloying, you don't find it too bitingly acidic. And the other thing that happens with Riesling is that of all the grapes, and they all change in bottle anaerobically, they don't need corks. We use screw caps because of quality control, not because they're cheap. And going on in the bottle from the time of bottling, when that was first bottled, it was like white flowers. The aromatics were very floral and beautiful, and they've developed into a much richer, deeper, and different from this complex anaerobic chemistry that's going on in the bottle. And we had we've just finished the 2013, which is after that, and and the 2011, and they've all developed that lovely secondary characteristic that or tertiary that makes Riesling so special.
Well,
Wonderful food
and
match.
How long do you think
are right.
we can keep that 212?
Yeah.
The 2012 Riesling. How much longer do you think it's still going to be?
Yeah, I can't answer that because it was the second vintage. And what I can tell you about the Pinot Gris. Now, Pinot Gris, difficult sell in the States. Pinot Gris not the same as Grigio, same variety, but it's such a different wine, and small yields and concentrated and very ripe and made in the Alsace way. We still have 2008 Pinot Gris, which are drinking remarkably well. In fact, they've gone to another place. So I think we're seeing aged wines, which are really, it's said in New Zealand that the average time from purchase to consumption for a bottle of wine in New Zealand, something like 1 hour 30. And I'm not a great at cellaring wine myself, but there's such a different experience when you can cellar wines and look after wines that are made to last. And I think the Waitaki Valley's acid structure that we get with this cool climate thing really lends itself to long-lasting wines.
Well, I applaud you for not releasing those vintages until so much later, because it's not that they don't age well, it's that people, as you say, people don't wait.
Yeah.
And so if you release them, people will drink them.
Well, Ginger, if I could get some of you people to invest in our business so we could hold on to them a bit longer, then I'm all for that. Nice idea. Atarangi, I don't know if any of you know Atarangi. It's probably our Grand Cru Pinot Noir producer in just north of Wellington in the North Island. And Clive Payton, who's the doyen there, and he's the originator of that lovely producer. He said to me their average time until bottling to sales is 19 months from harvest. He said they'd love to hold on to them longer too, but commercially they can't do it. Shanda, you head off. Shanda, you head off. 5 minutes? No. Sorry. Excuse me. So, yeah, aged Riesling, what a treat. And in my mind, probably the prince of white wines and one of the most wonderful wines that will be one of the easiest wines to match with food. Comes in many styles, which I think is confusing to many people that don't know Rieslings. And one of the problems that doesn't make it as popular as it probably should be. But everything from your seriously dry to your ultra sweet sticky wines.
So what is there? Where is this on the dry? It feels very dry.
So that is just off dry. It is
Okay.
it's from memory, I think that's about 11.5 grams residual sugar per litre, which is with an acid of about 9, so that the sugar just is higher than the acid. And when the sugar is lower than the acid, it's officially dry under this International Riesling Federation classification.
So they called this an off dry. Very nice.
Yeah, just off dry. We produce a spat laser style in the years where the acid is higher, and we've just released the 15 of that, which is 33 grams. and the 16, which is 7 grams. So they're two totally different wines from a year apart, just seasonal.
Fascinating.
And when
So
they're
does the
picked in the
sugar-
season.
Does the sugar acid balance depend on temperature and when you harvested, or what is it, what makes those vintages so different?
Ginger, it's a dark art, and if I told you that, I'd have to muzzle you. But no, I don't. I'm not a winemaker. What I can tell you is that you can pick your grapes at different ripeness. Then you get seasonal variation in where that's at as well. So you start with the acid, and if you have a higher acid, relative acid, you stop as a winemaker. You stop your ferment, and this is the dark art. When the balance tastes about right, doing a daily taste during ferment, and it's not all about the numbers. It's stop it now, and we'll leave more sugar in because the acid's higher this year, therefore lower alcohol. That's kind of the formula, but I'm not a winemaker.
It's so amazing because here it's mostly, you let fermentation go until it's just bone dry and alcohol just goes up. So it's so nice to have the lower alcohol wine.
Yeah, and
with a little bit of residual sugar that have this amazing flavor.
And the alcohol comes into that triangle in a big way. It's too much skewed that way, and it's too hot. And that balance thing, critical.
Well, this is really fabulous. And I mean, I know for a lot of people, when they think New Zealand, they think Sauvignon Blanc, but look at this fabulous wines that we got to taste and these different amazing tastes in these vintages. This is just fabulous.
So has anybody got the Gris there? No.
Did anybody open it? Probably not.
I've got it, but I didn't open it.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a treat in store. That is my favorite. That was the second year as well from this little vineyard we started. What happened in 2006, we thought we were going to be safe from spring frost. It turned out we were worse for spring frost than we thought. And we got burnt badly down at Clos Ostler on the limestone. So we went looking for a warmer site. And further inland, we found one, and it's not limestone, but it's a warm site, and the structure is sort of grey wacky boulders with a little bit of soil over the top. It's where we built a house, and it's sort of old riverbed really. And we planted Pinot Gris that had just come in from Alsace, a new clone, and that Riesling. And that Pinot Gris is the second year, and you've got a treat when you open that.
So how would you describe it, and what food would you pair with it?
Well, it's interesting. It's probably a bit like a Gewürztraminer. I would probably have that when it's got 14 grams residual sugar and it's 14% alcohol.
Holy moly.
And it is rich. It is mouth-filling. It's a full-bodied white. And I would probably have that with either some sweeter seafood or maybe something a little spicy, a little bit of Thai, bit of green curry, something like that.
Yeah, a spicy
or
food would
ultimate
go
reward,
if
or
it's got the
just,
residual sugar.
or even just drink it.
Or just drink it. I like that. Just drink it.
It is beautiful, and I would also call it just a tad more than off dry.
Yes. Yeah. But
And
it's got that
remember, it's all
richness.
about your temperature too, right? If you drink it too cold, you don't really get to taste it. And that goes for the Riesling and the Pinot Gris. It goes for all wine, but the whites especially. In America, we tend to drink our whites much too cold.
Yep,
You
and in
don't-
New Zealand.
Yeah.
I was in Burgundy with Mr. Jasper Morris, MW, who is Mr. Burgundy, and all the producers go to him for their reviews. He's a personal friend, and I made the mistake of saying to him, well, we think we should serve our Pinot Gris at about 10 degrees, and we're talking centigrade here, and that we should serve our Pinot Noir at about 18 degrees. And in his lovely Oxford English, he said, absolutely not. He said, it's 12 to 14 degrees for all whites and all reds. And I was stunned. I'd not thought of that. But here in hospitality, you have to store your beers at 2 degrees, like just above zero, for health reasons. And most of the hospitality keep their wines in there as well, their white wines. And you really spoil a good white wine by serving it that cold. And so I say to people, if you've got your Pinot Gris in the fridge, take it out half an hour before you're going to drink it.
Yeah, we've had that conversation a lot over the last year about
Yeah,
whites
with
too
Warren, and
cold.
even hold your glass if you have to warm it up a little bit.
Yeah. And that reds that we often serve too warm, that a little chill on the red is not a bad thing.
Yeah, Pinot Noir that is over 18 degrees, which is too warm, is disgusting. And it's the most disappointing experience you can have, an expensive Pinot Noir that's too warm. Any other questions about them?
Great. Well, Jim, thank you so much, and David, and for coming and joining us, and for pitch hitting from Warren. That was really, really great. We got exposure to some fabulous tasting wines that we would have not known about before. So we are very grateful for that. It was really a wonderful, wonderful experience. So remember, Warren has the last of these, so at least of the Riesling. So if you really like that, make sure you put an order in for Warren. So this is the end of series 6. We have now done 18 of these together, guys. This is so exciting. So, send me an email, put something in the Facebook group. Do you want to continue this? I know Hallie wants to do it. Hallie made some suggestions about Turkish and Hungarian wines. We'd have to find out from Warren whether he has access to those. And she brought up South Africa again, and Spain and Portugal. And last week we talked about going back to different regions in France and Italy. So we have a whole lot more of this world to see and to taste. So send us some feedback, give us some of your thoughts, and Warren and I will put our heads together, and we can do series 7. We usually need a break because Warren needs to figure out what wines he can source. I need to contact people like Sarah who can do the destination. So I would say we'd probably be looking at end of March, April, but it's nice to have a little break. Then we miss each other, and we're glad to see each other again. So I'll say goodbye for now, and thank you. It's so fabulous being with all of you. I love the feedback. I love the pictures of the food, all the comments. So it's really, really wonderful. So tell us what you want, and Warren and I will do our best to make you happy. So
it's Sandy Graham here to you and Sarah. Thanks very much for putting all this on. We really appreciate it from down under, and thanks as always to Jim. And just a wee selling point here. David's just told me that Warren has some 2011 Audrey's Pinot Gris from Ostler.
wow.
That is fantastic. So put the pressure on Warren to, get you some of that.
The messages do not be put off by the age. These are wines at their best.
So sorry for commercial pitch.
No, good. I mean, that's not a commercial. That's good information, because these are really special, and it would be wonderful. It would be terrible to miss out on it, and nice to know that we can grab it.
Right.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody. Thank
Thanks
you.
to all of you. Hopefully we'll see. Where's my wine? Hopefully we'll see you maybe in April. So till then, take care, stay healthy. Hopefully you'll get your vaccine soon enough, and we look forward to being together again. Good night,
Thank you, David.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jim.